My name is Masechaba Ndlovu. This is the SABC Stephen Bantu Biko Memorial Special Broadcast. And so many tweets coming through. Thank you so much. Keep hashtagging Steve Biko Day. We have a tweet here. I'm particularly very impressed by the fact that a lot of young people are showing up for these conversations. Now here's one from Sabela Alfred, who says, I remember my teacher telling us about how he died. I really wanted to know more of him and his mission and his purpose in life. And this is very interesting that he should say this, because he actually goes on to say that he feels as though the world speaks more about how he died than how he lived and what he actually stood for. So we absolutely appreciate these tweets, and you're more than welcome to continue to tweet and make sure that you call in with your questions on 089-110-3377. Hopefully we'll have time to get to them before the end of the conversation. And if you have just tuned in, we're joined in the studio by Ntate Pandelani, Nefolovhodwe, Professor Itumeleng Mosala, Ntate Tiani Mabasa, and Me Mojanku Gumbi, and all of whom are here to contribute their insights into the legacy of the great Steve Bantu Biko. So in just a few moments, we will be also getting the perspective of the woman who you just heard from now, Simbiwa Dana, who dedicated an entire album to the legacy of the late Steve Biko. She'll be joining us in about approximately 10 minutes or so, but you can continue to tweet your questions in the meantime. So, Ntate Pandelani, first and foremost, let's talk about the matters around black consciousness. Because 1 minute it feels as though we as the youth are grasping this concept, the next minute we're losing it. I'm not certain where we are, quite honestly, especially in light of the new hair movement, in light of the new skin lightening movement. I have no idea what is going on without judgment, but I certainly don't want to think that black consciousness is purely about the aesthetics. What is it for you?
Now, black consciousness is for black people, particularly. Black consciousness was brought about by the fact that black people lived under certain material circumstances that defined their destiny. And those circumstances were defined by others. The white supremacists had decided that these are the conditions under which black people will live. And those who have done a little bit of psychology, they will realize that once you are placed in material circumstances, you develop a consciousness governed by those material circumstances. And that consciousness, in this case, where the material circumstances were of an oppressive nature, brought about an inferiority complex, right, among all the black fellows who were living under those circumstances. So that inferiority complex made them to feel inferior to white people in particular. So we had to come in and intervene, that if we continue to have that inferiority, we are never going to be anywhere in the world. And then we started preaching black pride. We started preaching the fact that you should never deform yourself on the basis that you will become white and therefore become more beautiful.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So that is why even today, I hate to see black women wearing other people's hair. Really, I hate. Because they were born with their own hair. So the fact that they want to wear other people's hair, it's a really a phenomenon which must be attended to.
I need to jump in there.
Yeah.
I need to jump in there. Me Gumbi is rolling her eyes. You have a beautiful afro. Why are you rolling your eyes, Mama?
Well, no, I'm not rolling my eyes. As a later participant of black consciousness, I've always understood it to be not against anybody, but for black people. You know, so anyone who identifies with that struggle to create the humane face that Biko spoke about would become, as Date Mabasa said, it's not a question of how much melanin you have in your skin and all of that. Now, at a personal level, people will tell you that I also have issues with, this foreign hair and all of that. But I have found some of the most contradictory manifestations of black consciousness among people who may have that hair that Nefolovhodwe doesn't like and all that.
Yes.
But those people are truly, in many ways, black conscious. Because for me, it's not about appearance and all of it. It's about a fundamental transformation of the country and to allow black people to reclaim their land and
That
their
is
space,
so
but
profound.
not against anybody, as I say, but for.
Right.
So you have to identify with that agenda for black people.
So we need to be careful not to lose the focus. And, I know that I know that the Huma Sekela won't even take a picture with you if you have weave on your head.
Yeah.
I
also have
Great man.
I don't, a great man, but let's call it what it is. Not the Huma Sekela,
I just wanted to say that there are, as you can tell, even in the room, there are people with lots of wounds from a past that is fractured, and even
Broken people.
Yeah,
broken people, maybe in the form of like ex-girlfriends. Or,
No.
All right, let me behave.
But the most important thing is the question of identity.
Yes.
You see, you can't have an identity if part of you feel that it is not appropriate. And it doesn't matter whether you are in a black consciousness movement or any person on earth. For that person to have an identity and to live as a proud person, that person must be able to be proud of his body, proud of anything that that person was born with. And that is precisely the point I'm making,
across.
to say, look, you don't have to deform yourself in order to become something else.
Okay.
I always make an example with one young fellow who was born in America called Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson?
Yeah, he went into a terrible life span where he wanted to be white all the time, and that's a terrible thing, because inside you, in your soul, I'm not a person who believes in souls, but in your soul,
Okay.
you are destroyed. You are destroyed completely. We may see you moving around very as if you are happy, but inside, because you are denying your own basic existence.
It's highly debatable, and we certainly could debate it the whole night. But Michael Jackson did die of an overdose of drugs that were meant to numb his pain. So you may have a point. It's up for discussion. But Ntate, let's talk about the issue of language. Identity comes up a lot when we think about the legacy of Steve Biko. How important is language, and what do you think he would have perhaps represented where our language is concerned?
It's incredible that already at that time, among a generation of very, 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 very young people, you said I'm second generation. I'm kind of part of first generation and part of second generation, because I was there with them quite early. But already at the time, one of the things we did as a result of being black conscious, because the thing was, we embarked on a strong campaign to conscientize people, the political conscientization program. And among the things that we regarded as important was reappropriating our own languages. We started speaking our own languages. Up until then, to be clever was to speak English or Afrikaans.
Right.
And what Steve did was, I think an audit was started, an audit of colonialism on black people. That audit should have been continued, particularly by the new government in South Africa, because apartheid itself had a major destructive impact on us as a people. Now, Steve says we must own our own struggle, must own our own spaces. But he says, actually, we're not armed to do so. We're not equal to the task. Because we have been destroyed. Because inside we have an internal domestic problem of inferiority complex. How else do you explain where we are today in South Africa?
I have one more explanation. What about our education system? Because how do we then begin to instill our sense of identity when we send our kids to schools that say you're not allowed to speak vernacular when you're on the school grounds? We're not allowed to speak vernacular when we are within our
Let me be
workspace.
controversial. I think they are right.
You think they're right?
The reason why they are right is because the government that was supposed to have deposed an old educational system did not do so. So what we did was to reallocate our people within the same school system that was created by the apartheid masters. So what do people do? They think, no, if you go to a white school, you're better. But white schools are meant for white people, and white schools talk Bantu languages in white schools.
But
Go there, you deserve what you get if you go there.
Absolutely, how some white people still see it, and some black people also.
Well, I think in the hideous of the struggle, we used to say apartheid cannot be reformed in any way. You need to destroy it. But in 1994, I make a statement. I say President Nelson Mandela became the first president of the Republic of South Africa who was not white. Not that I hate him, but it's the whiteness, the apartheid was not actually broken in 1994. It was allowed to continue. The question of language, the Black Consciousness Movement had succeeded in making our languages important, but not an issue of division. But in the new situation, it's nice to be 100% Zulu. It's nice to be 100% Venda. And language, again, is no longer used as an instrument to capture our idiom, our culture. It's used in the manner in which it divides our people. Wow. So all these issues are being turned and changed and made to fight against us. Mojanku was right, that Black Consciousness, when they posed the question to Steve Biko that, are you against white people? Actually, it was posed to Sasso. And Sasso says, no, it's not because we are against white people. We are simply pro-black, which is the question she talked about, that we are for. We are not talking about other people. We are not concentrating about other people. We are speaking about our own conditions and what we can do to transform the lives of our people.
Sure. Gumbi, I want to come to you to find out from you, where we are systematically. We are celebrating the legacy of Ndate Biko, but I'd like to see us get to a point where we actually can say that we are applying his ideologies. Because at the end of the day, you mentioned Professor Hore. Before, back in the day, if you knew English, if you knew Afrikaans, you were progressive as a black person, you were better. It's still like that. Nothing much has changed, evidently.
Well, Masechaba, the only thing I would say is that, first of all, building nations takes a long time. I mean, a cohesive nation, especially coming from the divided past that we come from. Secondly, I've had the privilege of working a lot outside South Africa, and at the same time, I've met the horror of broken nations. Rebuilding that takes a lot of time. And then South Africa finally is very messy. Our history, I use that word deliberately. Our history is messy. Issues of identity, there was no filter. The colonialists arrived here and they really, penetrated every area of our being. So if you ask me who I am, it's very difficult because I've got white ancestry. I'm from Tabanchu, and I've got white ancestry in my history. I've got, and it was a conquest as well. So South Africa, I know we are not
Wouldn't have
unique.
said she's so black. I wouldn't
I do. I family with blue eyes and all of that. So all I'm saying is that I understand, my comrade's anger, but I look at it through the eye of what do we have to do to build towards that humane face, as I said.
I want to talk about just that when we come back in a moment. We're going to talk solutions. We're going to have about 5 to 7 minutes to conclude this conversation, and I want you all to ponder on a way forward for South Africa in light of the legacy of the great Steve Biko. Please do tweet us at Masechaba Ndlovu at Metro FMSA, #Steve Biko Day.